I know I said I was done making hunter builds and that I had kind of run out of ideas for what I wanted to do, but I actually finished one last build, and boy, it's fun. You want a build that can do this? But also be the most survivable build you've ever played with incredibly strong AoE ad clear potential. Boy, do I have a build for you, because this is a build that I was making just to see if Stasis Hunter could stand up to other builds that I've made, and because I've recently learned how to shatter skate, obviously, I wanted to see if I could find a build that I could just have to use, where I could also do goofy shatter skating stuff. Hey, hi, how are you? My name's Felt. Welcome back to Monument of Triumph in Destiny 2. And welcome to my Mask of Fealty Stasis Hunter build. Let's start by talking about our exotic of choice for this build, Mask of Fealty. Its exotic perk is Null Factor. Withering Blade hits and bounces create a small stasis crystal and refund a portion of melee energy. Using Withering Blade to shatter crystals or frozen targets leaves a spread of Withering Blades. This basically turns your melee from something that just slows a bunch of enemies when you throw it at them, to something that you want to bounce off of all architecture that you can possibly find to make little stasis crystals. Or anytime you see a crystal out there while you're playing the game, you want to throw this at it so that it shatters it and sends crystals flying everywhere. So obviously for the Stasis build, we are using Stasis Hunter, the Revenant Hunter subclass. And as for supers, we are also obviously using Silence and Squall. This isn't really a bad thing though. Silence and Squall is an incredibly powerful super. It doesn't have a super long cooldown, and it does surprisingly good damage to bosses. It's also very, very powerful at clearing out mobs of enemies, because the first throw silencing everything, freezing it all in place, is pretty dang powerful and high-end content. And then the Squall just roaming around the map, freezing and doing AoE damage while you potentially freezing stuff as well, is also just incredibly strong. It's a really good controlling super when it comes to adds, and it does decent boss damage. Not the best, but decent. Dodge-wise, we are using Gambler's Dodge because in a build that focuses around throwing as many melees as possible, we obviously want to refund our melee energy as fast as possible. Triple Jump because it's the best jump. You will never win this conversation. We don't have an option on our melee. It is Withering Blade. However, that works out great because Mask of Fealty synergizes with Withering Blade. As for our grenade, this is where we do have options. However, the correct option is Glacier Grenades. Why? Because it makes the most amount of stasis crystals for us to synergize with the rest of what we're doing with this build. You can argue to use Shatter Grenades and use a really high base grenade stat so that your Shatter Grenades do a ton of damage. I have found that the build works a little bit better by just using Glacier Grenades and shattering them, and just trying to beef up your shatter damage that your build does, more than worrying about making your grenade stat be really high. Aspect-wise, we're using Grim Harvest. In case you don't know what Grim Harvest does, picking up stasis shards grants stacks of frost armor. While you have frost armor, defeating combatants with stasis or kinetic weapons may cause them to shatter, damaging nearby foes. The shatter chance stacks increases with your frost armor stacks, and taking damage while your frost armor generates class ability energy. The bottom line is that this gives us frost armor for survivability, and frost armor is one of the best damage reduction things in the game right now. So we want to be able to stack frost armor quickly and easily, and we will be making tons of stasis shards all over the place because of so many choices that we've made. As for our other aspect, we technically have two options. I think Shadow Dive is the undisputed winner, but I will talk about the other one regardless. In case you don't know what Shadow Dive does, you activate while in midair to quickly descend and shatter nearby targets on impact. Shattering targets grants you frost armor. This is a really fast and easy way to just shatter all of the stasis crystals you've made from throwing Glacier Grenade and throwing your shurikens around, and you will in fact just become incredibly tanky instantly from all the shattering you do because of all the stasis shards you make that will go to you and give you extra frost armor on top of the frost armor you got from shatter diving. Plus, if you want to shatter skate, you got to shatter dive. The other aspect that you can use if you want to maybe take this build into higher end content where you're not really thinking you're going to be shatter diving adds at close range all the time, Winter's Shroud is an acceptable substitute. When you dodge, you slow nearby targets, and slowing targets in general briefly increases your class ability regeneration. It gives you a little bit of extra class ability energy basically for just bothering to use your kit as intended. It is quite strong, it is quite good, but I feel like more often than not, I don't have problems surviving with this build. So just shatter diving into crowds of enemies is totally fine. Let's talk about fragments. Fragments are really important to this build, so I don't really recommend you change any of these. Whisper of Fissures is up first. Increase the damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. This just makes it so that your shattering is better. This just does more damage in an AoE around you, and it makes it really easy to just constantly do AoE damage and clear out adds. Whisper of Shards. Shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade recharge rate. Shattering additional stasis crystals increases the duration of this benefit. This stacks on top of your grenade stat because it is just like a flat bonus to your recharge rate, which is not actually buffing your grenade stat. It's a bit of an odd one, but it is one of those interesting buffs that just goes on top of other buffs that you have on yourself. More grenades means more crystals means more shattering means more AoE damage. Whisper of Rime, your frost armor has increased duration and maximum stack count. Because of all the changes they've slowly made to frost armor over the years, where it only goes down one stack at a time, and your stacks are higher, and they give more damage reduction per stack, this means that you have a ton of stacks. You are incredibly tanky while you are at max, and it is really hard for you to run out of stacks of frost armor in content, even running between different parts of, say, a strike or a nightfall or whatever you're doing. Whispers of Conduction, nearby stasis shards track to your position. This is just nice so that you don't have to be constantly running around the map chasing down all of your shards. They don't follow you from a super far away distance, but it is nice to be able to just shatter stuff and then keep playing the game without having to worry about running in a circle really quick to go get your stasis shards to refund your ability energy. Last but not least is Whisper of Hunger, increases the melee energy gain from picking up stasis shards. This is a really nice addition to the build here at the end because it means that we don't have to run as much melee energy in the build unless we really want to. And on top of that, it means that all these extra stasis shards means we can just constantly be throwing out our melees over and over and over again, which, in case you didn't see earlier, it means that you will constantly be making extra crystals, which means you're constantly making extra shards, which means you're constantly making more melees, and it's a very fun little loop. Next up is our artifact, the Slayer Baron Apothecary Satchel. We use this because of all the very powerful stasis buffs inside of it, and we're going to be talking through each and every one of them and exactly how they work with this build. First up is Wind Chill. Rapid stasis hits grant you a stack of frost armor, hits against slowed or frozen targets, also creates stasis shards. We want more shards for this build always, so this is good. It also can just give you free frost armor without having to make stasis shards to pick them up, which we'll be making a ton of stasis shards anyways, but it's nice. Crystalline Converter, a much better than it seems thing. After activating your class ability, your next stasis weapon final blow creates a stasis shard. Generally nice, you dodge, and then if you get a kill with a stasis weapon, you make shards. You gather shards to gain stacks of Crystalline Converter, which causes your next powered stasis melee to create stasis crystals equal to the number of stacks you have. Which means, in a build that's throwing its melee constantly, we will almost always be making either extra or bigger stasis crystals when we throw out our melees because of this perk. It doesn't seem like an important part of the build, but making as many stasis crystals on the map as we can means we can just synergize with the rest of our build better, which means we make more shards, which means we do more AoE damage, which means we just are better at doing what we want to do. Hail the Storm. Shattering frozen targets and stasis crystals do increase damage. This is great. Shattering stasis crystals release shards of ice that damage and slow targets. Also great. Frost Renewal is up next. While you have Frost Armor, taking critical damage releases a burst that freezes nearby combatants and grants Frost Armor to you and nearby allies. It's just nice. It's not really necessary for gaining any extra stacks of Frost Armor because we'll be gaining it so fast anyways, but it's basically a panic button for if you take too much damage, any nearby enemies will get immediately frozen and you can get out of dodge. The reason this build never struggles for survival is up next. Curative Orbs. First time you break a target's shield or break the shield of a guardian using this orb, you create an orb of power. Whatever. Collecting an elemental pickup, collecting an orb of power, or destroying a tangle grants you a small amount of health. We make so many stasis shards on purpose with this build, which means that we are constantly having stasis shards on the ground to pick up for extra health. This also means that orbs that we pick up will heal us for just a little bit more than they would otherwise because of our terrible health stat. We'll get to that later. And this is just a great way to keep yourself survivable on a build that is already super tanky. Builds that are just tanky will sometimes struggle with survival because they don't have any extra health regen in them. Curative Orbs fixes that problem for us. It's wonderful. Brain Freeze is up next. Frozen combatants become surrounded by a chilling fog, which slows combatants that aren't already. It's not really that necessary or really that good, but it's nice to sometimes just throw out a shuriken at everybody around you. And some of the enemies that get frozen will just create a little stasis field around them that slows everyone around them. And it's just good battlefield control, not super necessary. If you really want to use like Weakened Clear or Kinetic Impacts, they make Kinetic Tremors. Either of the grenade launcher perks, because you like grenade launchers a ton with this build, you can replace it with those. I just think it's fun. Finally, Served Cold is up here. Picking up a stasis shard grants you class ability energy. The Void Breach doesn't matter. Free class ability energy, while we're also getting free melee energy, while also we get free grenade energy for shattering stuff and taking damage, but also we're regenerating our class ability for taking damage while having frost armor. We are just a machine of just spamming our buttons. This build becomes incredibly high APM once you get rolling, and it's in fact super fun. Let's talk weapons. In my opinion, the most core weapon to this build is the Icebreaker. The Icebreaker is an incredibly powerful sniper rifle. If you don't have it, it drops from Vesper's Host, and you technically have to do a big puzzle quest thing to get the Catalyst, but I've heard there are in fact different checkpoint bots out there on the internet that just wait at the Icebreaker chest for you to be able to get the Catalyst. So go look for those if you don't have your Catalyst yet. As for what this weapon does, it has the trait Icebreaker. Defeating a target with this weapon causes them to explode. Precision final blows or shattering a frozen target instead trigger an ignition. Pretty sick. The intrinsic trait is no backpack. Final blows or assists with any other weapon or ability have a chance to create ammo for Icebreaker. Defeating powerful combatants will create multiple rounds. Pretty cool. You technically don't have any reserve ammo at all, but you can go up to 10 bullets in the magazine. The Catalyst, landing a hit on a slowed or frozen target, has the chance to return a round to the magazine. What does all this mean? This means that you'll never run out of ammo because you'll always be doing something that makes ammo for Icebreaker. You will constantly be refunding your ammo because you will always have targets slowed or frozen, and you will probably be causing ignitions when you shoot either crystals or enemies that are frozen. And as a result of that, this weapon is an insanely powerful weapon for any stasis build. As for our primary weapon that we want to use with the build, these are the weapons that I would recommend you using, and you'll notice a trend. Redrick's S-Stock, it has Firefly and Headstone. The Time-Worn Spire, it has Firefly and Headstone. I mean, maybe not the Spiteful Thing, but it has Headstone and Firefly. Ias Luna, it has Firefly and Headstone. The modified B7 pistol, it has Firefly and Headstone. Solemn Remembrance, it has Headstone and Firefly. Are you getting the picture yet? There are more reasons why we specifically want a weapon that has Firefly and Headstone, which we'll get to in just a minute. But also, it's just an incredibly powerful combination for a build that is already leaning so heavily into stasis. And in case you don't know how this interaction works, Firefly and Headstone means that when you kill something with a precision headshot, it will make the crystal and set off the Firefly proc at the exact same time, meaning that more often than not, the Firefly proc will destroy the crystal, immediately doing AoE stasis damage. The easiest weapon of all of these to farm, in my opinion, is the Ias Luna, because it drops from Grasp of Avarice, and because Grasp of Avarice has a master mode, you can almost always farm this weapon. In case you don't know, master mode always drops tier 5 loot from dungeons. And so as a result of that, you can just farm whatever in that dungeon in order to get a T5 Ias Luna to up your chances of getting your lovely Firefly Headstone roll. Heavy weapon-wise, I really only have 2 recommendations. The first up is an Eager Edge Sword, preferably a Vortex frame like the Slammer, with some form of damage perk in the second column so that when you're playing more casual content, you can just Eager Edge and Shatter Skate around if you want to. Obviously, you don't have to. And still have a very usable heavy weapon that'll be helpful in taking out certain enemies as you go along. Fun fact, this build almost never has problems with champions because if you slow overloads, they become stunned. If you shatter unstops, they become stunned. And Icebreaker is inherently anti-barrier, meaning that as long as you use Icebreaker, your kit has an answer to every type of champion. The other weapon I recommend is Hezen's Vengeance. You're probably tired of hearing this if you're an endgame player or someone who's hunting down builds about hearing how good Hezen's Vengeance is, but it is just that good. A weapon that has the ability to roll both cluster bombs and a damage perk in the next column is going to be really good. Plus, you get the ability to get 2 rockets in the chamber for free anytime that you super, and as you'll see in the gameplay footage, or already saw in the gameplay footage, we super pretty often, meaning that more often than not, this is a 2-round rocket launcher with no downsides. The other reason I recommend Hezen Vengeance is because we run solar weapon boosts for this build because we're always running Icebreaker, and so it just kind of already fits inside of that idea of, well, I'm already boosting my solar weapon damage, I may as well use something that is also solar and very good. Let's talk about armor sets. The armor set that I recommend, and I don't recommend doing this build with any other armor set, is the 7th Seraph set. If you've farmed for any stasis builds, you probably have a good set of this laying around anyways, but in case you don't know how it truly functions, let's talk about that. The 2-piece bonus says final blows with area of effect damage, solar abilities, 7th Seraph weapons, or Ikelos weapons grant Warmind charges. Each stack of Warmind charge increases your weapon and grenade stats. Fun fact, stasis shatters are area of effect damage, so we actually don't have to worry too much about proccing this properly. Another reason I recommend the Firefly Headstone is because it means that you will be proccing the 2-piece bonus constantly as long as you get headshot kills. And in case you don't know how the stacking bonuses work, you get 3 of each stat per stack, and it stacks up to 10 times, meaning that if you can stay around 10 stacks of the bonus from this armor set, you will be having 30 extra grenade stat and 30 extra weapon stat. Now, it is not worth building your build around the idea that you will always have 30 extra of either one of those, but if you're like me and you like to min-max like crazy, it is worth knowing that you can get away with 170 weapons because more often than not, you will actually be sitting around 200 weapons. The 4-piece bonus is equally as good, in my opinion. While you have Warmind charges, defeating powerful combatants, destroying a construct, or destroying a tangle releases a solo detonation that damages combatants and heals allies. The heal is not insignificant. I've heard that it's either 25 or 50. I don't know which one it actually is, but either way, a Guardian on average has about 200 health, so even if it is only 25, so it'll be an eighth of your health bar, but still an eighth of your health bar that you'll get back in healing anytime you destroy a construct. Fun fact, stasis crystals are constructs according to the game's code, so every time you shatter a stasis crystal, you will heal yourself and release a little solar detonation. Solar detonation is not super powerful. You'll probably be dealing a lot more damage with your stasis crystals shattering in the first place, but it is bonus damage for a build, and if we're wanting to just be stasis focused anyways, we may as well use the primo stasis armor set that there is. Now that we've talked about basically everything else, let's talk about armor stats and armor modding. As for armor stats, I like to go for 170 weapons because I will be getting an extra 30 from the Warmind armor set bonus. You can just go for straight 200 if you want to make sure that you do more weapon damage all the time, but I still recommend weapons as being your best stat because so much of the rest of this build has so much extra regeneration, you don't actually need it to be as high as you think. As for the next stat that you should probably put the most amount of points into, it's actually super. Your super does a decent amount of damage, and getting it back as fast as possible is quite nice. My super is only 70 because this is the best armor that I got while farming out for this build video. If you can get your super up to higher than this, that'd be great, but don't sacrifice the next 2 stats that I'm about to mention, and that is class. I like having 100 class because that means I will dodge as fast and as often as possible, meaning that I will constantly be getting extra melees going, which means I will constantly be proccing armor mods, which we'll get to in a second. You can actually go a little above 100 class to make it so that every time you dodge, you get a little overshield, but you don't need to. I just like to sit around 100 because that way I get as much extra melees as I possibly can. After that is the grenade stat, because I like to be able to throw as many glacier grenades as I can. I could actually have this grenade stat be down a few points, around 70, but I kind of like it being at 100. You get it back slightly faster because you get a little extra grenade energy regen, meaning that the base cooldown is not very long. After those 4 bottom stats there, you just get whatever else you can into melee. Because of how much melee energy you get from shards, because of how often you'll be dodging, because of everything else I've talked about, your melee stat is just kind of here to make sure that you can throw them a little more often. And by them, I mean your withering blades. Health doesn't matter, it's a dump stat, get rid of it. As for armor mods, I just put whatever armor mods on my armor that I want to run to make it so that I have more of whatever stat that I need. For example, right now I could actually probably replace my grenade and melee mods with extra super mods to get a little bit more super energy in the build, but I just kind of like the way my build feels as is, so I'm not messing with it. On the helmet, I recommend running Dynamo so that you can get your super faster, because this stacks on top of your super regen. This is just a flat amount that you get back. I then run Harmonic Siphon and Solar Siphon so that whenever I get kills with either, say, my Solar Rocket Launcher or my Icebreaker, I make orbs, and then whenever I get kills with my Stasis Primary, or if I'm using my Stasis Sword, I make orbs, just because more orbs funnels stuff into the build better, so that we can just get more stuff rolling. As for glove mods, I like running double impact induction because we will be throwing a ton of melees out all the time, and this just makes it so that we get our grenade back faster. Heavy-handed is also in here, just in case we actually kill something with a melee ability to make more orbs. Making orbs also helps your teammates, so don't forget about that. The chest piece, as is tradition on chest pieces, you run whatever resist mods that work in whatever content you're in. I always just leave it like this by default because I hop between content so often. But if you're playing harder stuff, make sure that you adjust it, usually involving putting something like a concussive dampener mod on or doubling down on whatever resistance mod you need for whatever you're playing. As for the boots, I like running double weapon surge. I would run triple if my stats allowed it, but for now I'm just going to run double. And then the other thing that I will run on top of that is Orbs of Restoration. Picking up an Orb of Power grants a small amount of energy to your ability with the least energy, meaning that whatever's recharging the slowest, it gets a little better. And class item is a classic, Reaper so that we make orbs after we dodge, Time Dilation so that our buffs last longer, and Powerful Attraction so that we pick up all orbs just automatically when we dodge. That's that. Another hunter build in the books. I've found this build to be incredibly fun as I've played it. I hope you do too. This time, I mean it, this probably will be my last hunter build video that I make. So the Sons of Melancholy, I say that'll be it for this video. If you like this channel and you want to support me in the future as we stop making as much Destiny content, I will be continuing to make stuff on Deadlock in the future. I like to play indie games like roguelikes and roguelites, and I like a lot of heavy RPG games, a lot of playthroughs for which you can see on this channel. But thanks for hanging out and watching. Y'all are all cool and I appreciate you, and I hope to catch you all in the next one.